Hello. I've never used a microphone before, so this is going to be fun for all of us. I'm Heather Noel Turner. I've already been introduced, but you can follow me on Twitter if you want to. Because I'm going to be talking about a project that's just at the start. It's something that I've been thinking about for a long time. So what I'm presenting to you now is kind of the impetus that has kind of triggered me to focus a little bit more on user experience and power. And so what you're going to see today might be triggering because I'm going to be focusing on racist acts of technology. So I just wanted to give you that warning before I continue on and show you some of these things. But that being said, I wanted to make a clarification to kind of show you my thinking about what exactly I'm talking about whenever I say users and power, because it can be a lot of different relationships and things. So what I mean is thinking about users as people, and you've probably read or seen or experienced yourself that users are people. And not just, the kind of faceless shadows in the distance, right? They're living and breathing and human. And so my general question that I have is what happens if people cannot access interfaces? And what happens if interfaces are the pieces of technology that determine who counts as a user and thus who counts as a person? And so if those are the questions that I'm pursuing, and if an interface does determine who counts as a person and who doesn't, then you start to see technologies who do not account for multiple diverse users. Then you start to see acts of technological racism. I'm arguing, and technological sexism, and a lot of other things. And so I think one of the main things that I hope to communicate to you today, very briefly, is that most of these designs that you're going to see are completely functional. They work, and they're beautiful, and they work lovely. But they do not work by having desirable experiences for multiple users. And I think this is especially important for this LOCUS on access with the experience architecture program that we focus on experiences of racism from fully functional designs. I'm going to show you a few examples. So this is Jaws Wang using a Nikon Coolpix camera that she gave to her mother for Mother's Day. And as you can see, she's an Asian American woman, and she thought that this camera was broken because it kept showing her the message as someone blinking. Right, and so you can kind of see that this is a huge problem. And it's actually funny because she tweeted this picture, and I should have put the tweet here so you can see it today. But she tweeted saying, "No, I'm not blinking, you racist camera." Right, and so it's really interesting to see the way that Nikon responded to this. And they said that this was actually a malfunction in this camera. And you can actually follow that conversation and see a little bit more. They tested it on people of different non-white races, and they actually had similar problems. And Joss actually found if she opened her eyes as wide as she could, that it would actually work. And so this is a huge problem. I don't know if you guys saw this example. It's much more recent. This was in 2015. Jackie Alcine was using Google Photos, and every time it had this image with his friend, the Google image would identify her as a gorilla, right? It would not recognize these kind of non-white facial features, which again is another interface problem for these users, not considering them human. This image is from Shane Creeping Bear using Facebook. He tried to put his name on Facebook, and he's actually an indigenous person, and it would not recognize his name as real. It looks like that name doesn't meet their name standards, it said. So you can see that there's a lot of different instances. So it's not just kind of visual identifiers, right? It's also these kind of name identifiers, really anything that could be really non-Western. This one is more recent too. I don't know if you guys tried to use emojis a couple updates ago, but it was pretty slow And whenever Apple was trying to get compatibility from updated emojis to not updated emojis, instead of showing emojis for people of color, this alien would appear, which sends a completely different kind of message as an error message. And so I wanted to give you an example because I think not only is the design of this important, but I think the reaction of the companies who make these things is important. A lot of them called them glitches, malfunctions, and I think that it's really important for us, and I'm going to move on to the next slide, to consider, even if it is a glitch or not, whether this technology is intentional or accidental. That does not change the experience of racism for those users. Those users experience racism regardless if it's a glitch or not. And so I know this is, I kind of struggle with this, and I want to know what the answers are. I want to know what the solutions are, and I want to know, how do we make this never happen again? Or how do we work against it as designers, as experienced architects? And so I actually reached out. If you're interested, I can tell you more about this. There's an organization called Ladies That UX. It's international. And I reached out to them and I said, how do you do testing and designing in order to account for diverse user groups? And so I actually got one answer. And you can see that she talks a lot about cultural conventions, and she tried to give me some of her personal experiences. But I just wanted to show you that people are thinking about this, and the companies that made some of these designs may have been thinking about this, but I think there's a clear issue that more needs to be happening instead of just testing against these kind of images and these kind of results and experiences. So we can test inclusively, but I think that there's a longer chain that we need to think about, which is why I'm really happy to talk to a lot of you students in the room, because I think one of the first things that we can do is go all the way back and educate inclusively. That means we need to change, as educators, the populations that we're educating that are going to be future experience architects, which I know Liza talks a lot about. We need to make sure that diversity and non-Western stances are a priority. Because if we do that, then we can hire inclusively, which makes us design more inclusively. So there's kind of a chain effect here. So I just wanted to give you that brief kind of place where I'm at and the research that I'm doing. These are kind of the questions I'm asking. And the result is that I want everyone to do better. There's no other way to say it. Sometimes you just have to say, please be better, please do better, please think more. I have a lot of references here on global UX and global design and global technical communication if you're interested. I can leave this up later so that you can copy some of them down too. That's all I have. Thank you.